In this video we'll show how you can use the ViewBox control to send beautifully formatted email messages to people from within Alpha Anywhere. So if you look at this component here, we have the output of a ViewBox control. So you can see if we go to controls, we have a ViewBox control over there, and this ViewBox is actually using one of the predefined samples. So if we go there and say load sample, we've loaded this sample here, a list of orders for a customer. So and that has filled in the ViewBox layout over there, and the only addition that we've done to this layout is we've given the class that the div that contains the whole email message that we want to send an ID of ViewBox content. So if we go now and we look at this component here, we can see that there's the ViewBox content, and this is the content that we want to send in our email. So right now I've got a button that's going to send the email, and currently the button is hard-coded to send the email to myself, but of course in a real application the target email would be dynamic. So I'm going to go ahead now and press this button, and you can see that the email gets sent. And now I'm going to go over to my inbox and take a look at the email that I just received. So here's the email that was received, and you can see that I've received here basically an email message that looks really good with a nicely formatted HTML body. So let's go back to the UX now and take a look at how we did this. So first of all, if we go to this button, send email, we can see that the action on this button is to make an AJAX callback, and I could have used action JavaScript. So basically what I could have done is gone over here to buttons and then chosen AJAX, and I could have used basically the action JavaScript to compose the JavaScript that makes the AJAX response. But in this case I just chose to code it myself, so I'll just go back and delete that. So you can see here, so what we're doing over here is, first of all, we're going to get the HTML content of the email that we would like to send. So remember that we gave the whole ViewBox layout an ID of ViewBox content. Actually I spelled that wrong there, but since I made that same error in both places, it's okay. And then I'm going to go here and get the inner HTML. So this is going to give me the inner HTML of that ViewBox, and it's going to allow me to send that back to the server. Then I need to basically send this HTML back to the server, but the way it needs to be done, it needs to be sent as a name-value pair, and the value needs to be properly HTML encoded. So we use this built-in function, A5 AJAX build URL parameter. So this function builds a name value pair to be used in a query string in the correct syntax, and this particular function can easily be found from the list of available functions that you can insert over here. So you can see there's that build URL parameter. So this is now going to basically create a variable called data, which is a name value pair. The name is underbar HTML and the value is the actual HTML. And then here in our AJAX callback, we're going to basically use an XBasic function called send mail to actually handle the callback, and then you can see we're going to send back some additional data as part of the callback over here by passing back this data value over there. So on the server side now, when this XBasic function send mail executes, it's going to basically have all of the HTML that needs to be sent in a variable called underbar HTML. So in this in the next video, so we're going to pause now, and then in the next video we'll pick it up and we'll take a look at how this send email function does its job. So we're continuing now taking a look at how this send mail function was constructed. So let's go now over to the XBasic functions, and here we have send mail. So what we're going to do is actually step through this code line by line, but you can see here that well, actually let's just go step through it line by line. So I'm going to go here and just put in a debug1, and now go ahead and run the code. So I'll go over into working preview, and then I'm going to click the send email button. So here we go into the function. So the first thing that I want to point out is that e._html is the HTML that we want to send. So this is the HTML that we got from the div in the ViewBox control. So it was from the div called I think ViewBox layout or ViewBox content or something. But anyway, when we look at this HTML over here, we can see that it does not have any style sheet attached to it, basically. And the reason that it doesn't have any style sheet is that the CSS styles for this component are not in the ViewBox layout. So if we go back to the ViewBox here, you can see here's the ViewBox layout, but the CSS is defined over here. It says CSS defined specifically for this control. So we're going to need to, at runtime, basically go look at the definition of this control and pick out the CSS. So let's go back now and start stepping through the code again. So we'll go here and we'll start stepping through the code. So first of all, this is the CSS that we're trying to get. So I've just written it into the function here, but we're going to actually extract it from the component itself. So let's just carry on. So inside the E object that is passed in over here, one of the properties in the E object is something called temple, which stands for template. And that is the actual definition of this UX component. So the whole UX component definition is passed into this AJAX callback. And you can see over here that what we're doing in this definition here is we're basically saying find where in the component the UX component, the ViewBox component was defined. So we're basically saying find where it is, find which item it is in the list of available controls, and we can see that it's item number 2. And then if we go and look inside the definition here, if we go to temple.pagefields 2, we can see that inside this object there's a property called V. Then there's another property called ViewBox, and then there's another property called definition JSON. So this property contains the entire definition of the ViewBox, and one of the fields in this JSON object here is the CSS. So we need to pull that CSS out. So let's carry on here. So we're going to go here and say that the JSON comes from definition JSON. So now we have the JSON. Then we're going to pass the JSON by calling JSON pass. So now we have this P object, and inside the P object we have form view and then CSS. So this is the CSS that we want to use for our email. So now carrying on. So now we go and create the HTML document that we want. So we basically use the HTML element, then we have a head element, then we put our CSS style sheet in the head. It's very important that the CSS style sheet be in the head and not in the body. And then we have the actual HTML that we want to print out in the body. Then we close off the body, and then we close off the HTML. So now we basically constructed the HTML message that we want to send. So we can see that the message looks like that. And then we just continue with the standard properties of the Spark Post object, because we're going to use Spark Post to send out this email. So the only thing that's of interest here is that in the additional options over here, you'll see that we've turned on inline CSS. So that's a critically important property of Spark Post, because that's going to allow this email to use the CSS style sheet that we've got. And then finally we call the email send Spark Post function, and then we send a response back to the client that says the email was sent. So that this video shows how you can send really nicely formatted messages back to the client. Thanks very much for watching.